Hi everyone, welcome to another edition of me speaking with other entrepreneurs and people in business about who they are and what they do and how they do it. I've tried to start this live a couple of times and I've had notifications going off, so apologies. So today I've got a wonderful guest that all my guests are wonderful. I've got a wonderful guest, a woman after my own heart, an authentic encourager, sharer, mum, lifestyle advocate, a TEDx speaker, a corporate trainer, a podcaster, a host, a presenter, facilitator, and so much more. And we're going to invite her on now to talk about what she does, how she does it, and just get her to share some gems with us. So without further ado, I'm going to invite...
Hi.
Hi, welcome, Justice.
Hi. I joined and it said video ended and I joined again.
So I'm over at my mum and dad's house because I'm having work done at my house and they're doing snagging
No
and
worries.
got kids at home and they're confined upstairs while the work's going on downstairs. So I was like, I'll come here, and then my ring doorbell's going off there while I'm here and I'm getting confused. So thank you for
No
bearing with me.
worries.
Welcome.
Welcome. Happy Saturday, everybody.
Hi everyone. I hope you're having a great Saturday. How's your Saturday been?
Fairly chill, to be honest. I like Saturdays to be more like about the kids and just chilling out. And so, yeah, so Saturdays is like family day. So whatever the kids want to do. So my son went out and visited his old primary school. He's just finishing year 7, but they have like a school fete and all his friends have been waiting all year long to meet back up and have a reunion. So I let him go. It's not far. It's like 10 minutes up the road. So I tracked him in an Uber there and tracked him on the phone coming back. So he's back home now. They're upstairs eating their pizza and garlic bread.
Same. So I've ordered my lot of pizza and garlic bread as well. So snap.
Keep quiet for a bit.
So we've had the same. Our kids have been at football and we went to messy church and barbershop, haircut, that kind of thing. It's been
Always, yeah.
normal
Busy day.
Saturday. So welcome to this Saturday show that I have with people in business, people that are doing amazing things in business, in the community, making social impact. Tell me, who are you, Justice, and a bit about your background, like what you're known for.
Sure.
Tell me a bit about you and your story.
Yeah, definitely. So I am Justice Williams. I am the proud co-founder of 2 kids, age 5 and 11, a girl and a boy. And I live in Birmingham in the suburbs. I'm 42 years young and I have a few businesses. One of them, Dream Plan Launch. It's all about supporting women to follow their dreams, launch their plans into the world. And so I do that in various capacities through coaching. I also have a podcast called Dream Plan Launch. I do events, I do group coaching programs, I do online courses, I have my business brunches, anywhere we can kind of create a community of women to support them, to elevate them and amplify their voices. And ultimately my goal is to help empower more women to achieve financial freedom through the power of entrepreneurship. And then more recently, I've launched with my business bestie, Dr. True Powell, the Black Business Magazine, which I'm the co-founder of and editor-in-chief. And that's all about amplifying the voices of Black-owned businesses and, you know, showing people what's actually possible and sharing success stories of people who have kind of walked that journey and that road before us. And so it gives them insight, information, knowledge, and also inspiration at the same time.
That's fantastic. I'm so glad to see that. I've already ordered my copy to be sent to me. Yeah, really excited to read it and see what's coming up and getting some more gems. And yeah, so tell me, where has your entrepreneurship come from?
I would say it came from, I would say definitely my parents, not in a direct kind of planned way. So both my parents were entrepreneurs in different ways. When I was younger, I was classed as a gifted child, and my dad actually wanted me to go to university, go to college, study law and politics. And my mum, she had her own kind of clothing tailoring company in the inner city of, we lived in the suburbs, but she had a clothing shop in the inner city of Birmingham and Handsworth while we grew up in Harborne. And she also has always been in food, catering. She was a community radio DJ. When my parents got divorced when I was about 10, my dad moved to mainland Europe. He was always in construction and property, and he's built a very, successful property empire in the Caribbean. But he had a coffee shop, as we all know, the Dutch coffee shops, and a clothing store right next door to each other. And my mum actually, even after they got divorced, took us there on the ferry, and we spent 6 weeks with our dad. And then she stayed with her brother who was living in Holland, and then she brought us back. So I'd say that's where it came from, because originally I was going to do law and politics. And, unfortunately I dropped out of college literally a few months before I was supposed to sit my A-levels. Made some poor decisions, ended up getting a criminal record. And that led me to not actually going into law, because having a criminal record, spending some time at Her Majesty's pleasure, it kind of meant that, the irony of trying to be a lawyer, it wasn't quite washing out. And back then, they weren't so forgiving as they are now in terms of rehabilitation of what they call ex-offenders. So they'll throw all those labels at you: ex-offender, ex-convict. I was called once when I got my MBE 7 years later. Ex-convict gets Queen's Honour. That was the headline. So it's a label that kind of followed me around for a while. But then, I'd say 7-8 years on, I got my MBE, as I mentioned, became Cosmopolitan magazine's most inspirational woman of the year, became a global ambassador for Levi Strauss. The following year, got another award from Red magazine, was invited to 10 Downing Street once, then twice, then 3 times. Spoke at the House of Commons on multiple occasions, and it's all about anything that's going to empower and uplift the voices of underrepresented or marginalised communities, which has always been at the heart of what I do, including in my business ventures as well.
And what did you get your MBE for? I know you were the youngest Afro-Caribbean female in the country to get an MBE at the time. What was it for?
Services to young people in Birmingham.
That's amazing.
Yeah, so I was in my 20s, and at the time it was about all the work that I was doing with young people in the city. I was working with young people that were involved in gangs, young people that was in care. And so it was about giving them, helping them to have a positive future, and campaigning and lobbying the government to stop stereotyping and stop typecasting young people from inner city areas. Now there is obviously still some, a lot of systemic racism, and it's more looked around as class now. But back then it was very much as if you're black and you're a male and you're from the inner city, you must be involved in a gang. And a lot of the mainstream media, that was the stories that they were reporting. But there were so many young people that were doing amazing things, and so I wanted to be involved in any initiatives or projects and programs that we could do to kind of provide opportunities for young people, which led me working with the Home Office, West Midlands Police, Birmingham City Council, taking young people to the European Youth Forum in Brussels so they could understand how politics works. And I made Birmingham City Council pay for that that initiative. That was taking kids from inner city areas, from all walks of life. We had a young white guy from Chelmsley Wood. We had a young Asian Muslim girl from Sparkbrook. We had a ex-gang member from Aston, and they all came together to understand how can we actually get our voices heard, so we don't feel that we have to kind of go out there and make our voices heard in other ways.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that's kind of where I started. And then my work shifted when I had my son, when I was 29, and I kind of then, and obviously getting my MBE,
how so did your work change once you had your son?
I was 29, and I had him 2 months before my 30th birthday. I didn't consider myself to be a young person anymore. And it was like, for me, when I was a young person doing the work that I was doing, I started when I was 21. And so when I was working with 16 and 17-year-olds, I was only like a couple of years ahead of them. I understand the issues and challenges that they face, because I faced those as well when I was in the boardroom and sitting at council house meetings, when I was going against what people who'd been around the table for 20-30 years were saying, and say, well, actually that's not quite factually correct. And I put my statistics and my fucks forward. I remember a guy standing up and jumping up, and he goes, "How dare you?" And I was thinking, what's he going to say now? And it's like, you young upstart. And I was like, oh, okay, is that a compliment? I didn't know what that meant. And obviously it's not quite a compliment, but that's, people used to look at age and think that we didn't know anything. But we were very much in the knowledge because we had a lived experience.
Right, yes.
And as I got older and I had more opportunities, I moved back to the suburbs. I couldn't relate directly to the lives of these young people anymore. And so I didn't think I was best suited to continue directly working with those young people, but I trained up other young people to step into those shoes and to take those roles and help them to set up their own youth organisations. And that's what I was really good at doing. So yeah,
That's fantastic.
that's just Sophia Coker joined us as well, and Sophie was one of the amazing women, and then we collaborated on a few projects back then when we were working with young people. Seems like a lifetime ago, but now, yeah. So when I had my son, I then moved into kind of attracting more women. I always say like attracts likes, and when you build your brand, you know, and you share your values and you be authentic, you'll naturally attract people to you. And people used to say, well, how do you do it? You've got kids, you run the business, you know, I want to start my business, like I need your advice, I need your help. And so that's how my audience kind of shifted, because I was now a mum, a mumpreneur, as they would say. I don't really like that term.
They got
but
rid
then
of
I was
that term, didn't they?
yeah, they thought it was a bit like down, like I think they felt it was like downgrading women, but it was women that actually came up with that terminology anyway. And there's still groups called mumpreneur and things like that. But like young people wouldn't look at to me like my street cred wasn't there anymore. And so yeah, you evolve, like as you grow in your business, you do evolve. Your audience can change and shift as well. So that's how that happened.
And how are you managing your time now, juggling kids and your business without burnout?
I've had burnout a few times and I've learned the lesson the hard ways. And I feel for me, the number one thing is what I always say to people, especially like women and they've got kids, because as women, we're usually the one that has the caring responsibilities with a primary caretaker, whether it's children or elderly parents, for those that have elderly parents that might not have children, or nieces and nephews. And the thing is, you have to get help. I think especially as a Black woman, we often have this cape of trying to be the superhero, and society has put these expectations on us to be strong Black woman, and the stereotype of us being, you know, Black women, single parents, you know, so the Black woman is so strong, look, she's doing it all. And so naturally we feel that we have to be strong. And even if you look, you know, across the board in terms of maternal health, mental health, Black women, when they're looking for help and being vulnerable, their voices are not often heard. So I always say to women, go for help, get help, especially like once you've had children. You know, we're more likely to get like postnatal depression and more likely to die in childbirth. So I always say, ask for help. Don't try and do it all. You know, people say you can have it all. I believe you can have it all, just not all at the same time. I couldn't be 100% present with my children and have a business and have time for myself. I'd just be like all in on my children. And so I always say balance is a state. Who says, oh, how do you get work-life balance? That doesn't exist. You know, work-life integration. Balance is a temporary state that's not meant to be, you know, maintained. And so for me, it's about having boundaries, having non-negotiables. There's power in your yes. There's power in definitely in your no. I don't say yes to everything, and I say no to things that add value to my life or the life of my family, children, whether it's financially or otherwise. And as well, I have help, so I have support. So childcare, I couldn't do what I'd do if I didn't have my sisters and like my mum, who kind of look after my kids when I have to do like speaking engagements or deliver training, or I have to go to London on the evening and not back till late, or go away for the weekend or whatever it may be. And that's not just on the business side. When I want to go to the spa and switch off for the weekend, my sister will have my children and will come and stay at my house and watch the kids, and I'll just be switched off in the spa knowing that they're taken care of, because you have to have that alone time. Can't pour from an empty cup, as the saying goes.
And you mentioned to me about incremental upgrades, didn't you? That
yeah, and I think that's another thing as well, because I think that, you know, we can get overwhelmed. Part of like being overwhelmed and burning out is trying to, you know, what bro marketing tactics teach you is all about this hustle hard culture. If you don't wake up at 5 o'clock, you are a failure. That doesn't work for most parents who are mums. We can't go for a run at 5 o'clock when we've got a toddler in the house by themselves and things like that, or go in a gym at 6 a.m. and stuff like that. So I always say to people, don't like try and burn yourself out trying to live up to society's expectations or what you see on social media, because people got the big house, the big car, and they're going to the Maldives and they're in Dubai, and they're on the Orient Express, and they're living their best life, which you don't know if that's paid for by 10 credit cards and their mortgage is late or whatever. And I always say to people, start where you are and decide what's important to you in your life, and then create a plan to incrementally upgrade your life. And so one exercise that I do with my clients every single year, so I have this planner, and they reflect on their circumstances, but they kind of score their life in all aspects from 1 to 10. And one of the areas is like your environment. So where you're currently living, whether it's the area that you're living in, the house that you're living in, are you happy in that from 0 to 10? And then if you say, it's less than 8, how can you then create incremental upgrades in all aspects of your life to kind of improve it? So for example, you're saying that you don't get any time for yourself and you're not prioritizing self-care. It's something I posted this week. Start with an hour, put an hour in your diary. And that's another thing, you've got to schedule it into your diary. Put an hour into your diary.
Yeah.
It's non-negotiable, just like any other appointment. Like you would show up for that meeting and not cancel it and move it around. Have that non-negotiable hour in your diary. And even if it's time just to go to a walk, Netflix and chill, stare at the ceiling. That's what I used to call it, white space, because that's all I had time to do. Half an hour to lie in my bed and stare at the ceiling, gather my thoughts and go again. And now I can afford to, financially and otherwise, go away for the weekend and travel abroad and do all these other things, but do it in stages. And so if your house, you can't afford to move, what can you do? Can you redecorate? Can you change the carpet? Can you buy a new sofa? Can you get a new bed, an £800 mattress so you can sleep better at night and, sleep in comfort? It doesn't have to be that, unattainable £1 million house that you see that everybody else has. Take your time. I always say, run your own race. People often say, stay in your lane. And I see it in a positive way. I'm saying, stay in your lane. Like the lane that you're in is just for you. It's not for anybody else. Stop trying to jump into other people's lane, because you'll probably end up getting run over. And that's because you're trying to run at the pace that they're at, and that pace is not designed for you. Like I got my pace and my time, and yes, I could be further along in many aspects of my life, but nobody's living my unique life or my circumstances. And so I stay in my lane and I'm confident where I'm at.
Thank you. So I went out this morning with my 4-year-old now. I wanted to go for a walk. Everyone else was asleep, and I keep putting off those little things that I want to do for myself.
Yeah.
My self-care. So I got up and I was like, right, I'm going for this walk around the block, and my daughter came with me, and I got to have my walk, and then I just felt so much better for starting my day that way, whereas I could have just not gone. But I sort of incorporated her with me.
Yes.
And I just did it. And some days I say I want to do stuff, like I want to get up at 5, and I might not have got up at 5.
Sure.
Eat a particular way, and I haven't, and I've gone, oh my God, but there's always tomorrow. And
exactly.
I love the fact that you share with people that you work with about having overarching goals and then breaking it down.
Yeah.
Can you tell me a bit about how you do that sort of holistic, and how you share that with your clients? Sure. And
so for me, I always work on so people always say I have a 10-year plan, a 5-year plan, and all these things. But you know what? For me, I know that I can think of what I want to do in 5 years, but the lived experience that I have in the next 12 months would perhaps change that. So at minimum, I might have a 3-year plan or a 5-year plan of what I want to achieve long term. They're kind of big, dreamy goals with not lots of detail, but the detail comes in the 12 months. So I always plan like a whole year and say, what am I going to do over the next 12 months? And I always say, pick 3 to 5 overarching goals that you want to achieve for that year. And those goals, whether in business or you work or you have a career, whatever it may be, those goals should be linked to your personal goals. Because, for example, you might want to buy your first house, pay off debt, travel the world, go to university, do a master's degree, do a bachelor's degree, teach, volunteer, whatever it may be. Have 3 to 5 goals, mixture of business and personal, that you want to achieve. And out of those 3 to 5 goals, pick one that's non-negotiable, that you'll say, at the end of the year, if all else fails, I achieve this one thing, this year's been a win. Yeah. And that's what I always do. I say, pick one thing that, is going to be a win for you this year. And from that, you'll be able to take the 12 months and break them down into quarters. I always work on a 90-day sprint because 90 days is a lot more actionable, it's more focused, and it's a lot more manageable, so you're not overwhelmed. When I work with my clients who've got multiple projects going, I always say try not to launch more than one every single quarter, because you also don't want to confuse your audience in terms of, oh, she's got a book out, oh, she's got this new program out, or what do I buy, where do I go? You know, so try and just pick, say, 3 to 5 overarching things. If it's in business, I would say you're going to have 4 main things that you want to launch or do each year, and then have some personal goals mixed into it. Break it down into 90 days, and then break that 90 days down into months, weeks, days, hours, and time block as well. Like, a lot of people try to feel like they're doing amazing things because they're multitasking. Some people can multitask really well, but you know what my mentor always taught me? He said, Justice, if you want to do 2 things at the same time, you can never give them 100%. Even if you gave them the same amount of energy, you will only be able to do them 50% at best, because you can't give your time, or one's going to be 80%, one's going to be 20%. And so for me, that has stuck with me through the last 15, 20 years. And so I time block. And so my week is based on blocks. So Monday is my CEO day. So that means I don't really have any meetings unless it's an emergency or people can't do it any other time. That's my day to kind of get my business and my household in order. So it's my time for me, the accounts, the planning, etc. And then Tuesdays is typically my meeting day, where I'll do Tuesdays. Wednesdays kind of like more the content day, creating content, recording podcasts, planning ahead. And Wednesdays and Thursdays are client days. So if I do VIP day strategy sessions, it's usually on those days. And then Friday's me freeness Friday, as I like to call it.
I love that. How do you hold yourself accountable just with your goals?
Having a mentor, having a coach. I always say every mentor needs a mentor, and every coach needs a coach. And having a business bestie as well. So like I will say, this is what I'm doing. What are you Bless me, sorry, it's this hay fever. What are you working on? And we kind of check in and hold ourselves accountable. And I have people in my life who are close to me who, okay, for example, my podcast. I had the dream to launch this podcast 7 years ago, believe it or not. Wow. 7 years ago, there was a picture, and my brother shared it on his Instagram 7 years ago. And then he sent me the picture because I kept saying all of last year I'm going to put the podcast out, announced it and said I want to do it. And then I got busy with clients and thought, yeah, I'll get around to it. It's not a priority. It's not a priority. And then randomly out the blue, he sent me the picture, and in big capital letters, he said, go and record your podcast now. Do you know what I mean? And I was like, oh, And then what was so interesting was the day that I released the trailer for the podcast, I was typing on LinkedIn. I put it out, and then I went onto Facebook or scroll on Facebook because I thought, oh, I don't really post on Facebook that much anymore. And so I was like, let me put it on Facebook and let everybody know, because it was that's where I announced it. And then memory came up, and the memory was I was in the studio on that day recording the first trailer 7 years ago, and I didn't even realise. I was like, how spooky is that? So the day actually
doesn't wait for anyone. People procrastinate and put things off so much, and when is that day gonna come, you know? And it's like, you would and you coulda,
but you didn't. And I always say to people, you know, the worst life ever lived is not the life that you make mistake. It's not the life that you failed and you tried and things didn't work out, because you always learn from experiences. Absolutely. And I always say there's a blessing in every lesson, but it's a life of regret and the life unlived. And so I always say, imagine me having grandchildren and sitting down and they say, Granny, Nana, probably Grandma, you know, what did you do this? Did you do that? And I said, you know what? I should have, I would have, I could have, but I didn't. And what scares me, I remember watching a Gary Vaynerchuk, Gary V, if anybody knows him, in the coaching space, the online space. And I remember him, you know, having a video, and someone says, like, what keeps you going? He goes, that one day I'm going to die. We're all going to die. And for me, the reality of it is this: it's flipping shit scary that, you know, what if that happens and you haven't done the things that you say that you want to do? It's like that life of regret and that fear. And it just, like, I think after turning 40, I was like, and then going to the doctor and getting a health check and saying, all right, you need to lower your blood sugar and this. I'm thinking, oh my gosh, I'm there already. And so it's like, you know, you have to get your ish together, and you got to get it together quick. And so I always say, just go and do it. Like, what's the worst thing that can happen is that you never worked out. Like, I've launched stuff and they flopped. And even the last couple of years, I've launched
And
things
how
that
do you feel? Like, how do you deal with the flops?
I reflect and look at what is it that I could have done better. And the reason why I always analyze things from a strategic point, you have to remove the emotion out of it.
Yes.
Because if you have the emotion attached to it, you'll be like, they don't like me. Nobody's liking my stuff. It's because it's me. You know, what did I do? Whatever. And you get all in your feelings and all in your head. But the reality of it is it's because you didn't post on Instagram for the last 6 months and the algorithm doesn't even know that, and only 3 people saw your post. And then you posted and ghosted and thought that, oh, you put one post out and you're going to get, 500 customers. You weren't consistent. You were not consistent with your message. You're not consistent with your audience. You're not consistent with your brand. You're not having an omnipresence, which means rather than just focusing on social media or just on Instagram or just on LinkedIn, what stages are you speaking at? What networking events are you going to? Where are you showing up in real life for people to even know that you exist? And as much as we can think that we're great and everybody knows who we are, most people don't. And so
that's what I'm going to actually ask you. Like, how do you connect with people and grow with people in business effectively? Because I know we talked about networking the other day.
Yeah, I think you have to first of all stick to the personal brand foundations, which is something I just posted literally yesterday, or was it this morning, a video saying you got to be, I'm not trying to be the best. I'm not judging you as that you're the best and I'm trying to achieve you because then you become the standard. It's about me being authentic to who I am and like outdoing me. And so I feel like you have to show up as who you authentically are. Like how you see me today, I'm at home, I'm on my sofa. This is like my favorite place between my sofa and my bed. I'm just chilling. And, you know, the same person that you see when you meet me in real life, I'm the exact same person. And so it's about being authentic. You will attract people and you will repel people, and those that are for you, that your values align. You've got to be explicit about your brand story, who you are, the journey that you've gone on, you know, how you got to where you are today, because by sharing with others, people will be able to say, oh my gosh, I resonate, I can relate. You've got to be able to be willing to share your struggles, the challenges, your failures, your mistakes, the things that did flop and didn't work out, and allow people to see that side of you, because this whole polished, perfected image that people portray on social media,
It's
you
not,
know, it's not real. And they, you know, I see people who are like in a similar, I would say similar level, or people judge them to be in a similar level than me, and it's all about, oh, I'm driving in my Bentley and I'm jetting off, I'm off to Dubai and I'm in Hakkasan and Nobu, and oh, you know, all these, you know, what they call rich people problems, but you know, wealthy people
problems.
first world problems, yeah, but you know, true wealthy people, they're not loud with it. You know, that you wouldn't never know that they are wealthy or having to kind of overly show out what they have. And I don't believe there's nothing wrong with living a good life and living your best life, because I like luxury. I'm not really a luxury handbag kind of person. I like luxury holidays. I like good food, and I would spend money on experiences. That's just me. I'll have the odd designer thing here or there, probably bought by somebody else, because I'm like, I ain't spending £1,200 on a bag. You know what other things I could do with that? I could go on a holiday, treat my kids to, you know what I mean? You know, a safari, up close, personal experience. So I would say show up as who you authentically are, be willing to share and be vulnerable with your audience, but also as well, demonstrate your authority, demonstrate your credibility, demonstrate what it is that you have to offer to other people, and stick to 3 to 5 kind of key brand pillars. So when people think about you and they say, oh, go and speak to Justice, there's going to be, you know, 3 to 5 things that they're going to tell you to speak to me about. It could be about starting your own business. It could be more broader about in terms of, yes, she works with women, she works with Black businesses, you know, she's in the magazine space. It could be around the fact that I help people with marketing, with mindset, with their money, you know, personal branding, speaking. Those are more kind of like smaller topics, but it's quite broad. I would say my pillars are like mindset, money, marketing, personal branding, and productivity. And then my secondary pillars, which are not things that I use in terms of generating an income from, but it attracts my audience, is like being a mother. Like, yes, there's some people that don't want to show their kids on social media. That's fine. But people will know that I am a mum, and it's part of who I am. It's part of my identity. That's never going to change. It's something that I'm proud of. I am a Black woman. It's part of who I am, part of my identity. It's never going to change. You know, even for bleaching my skin, I'm just still gonna be a black woman, do you know what I mean, who bleached their skin. So, you know, it's part of my identity, and the struggles and the barriers and the challenges that come with those things, I open up and share about as well. And I think that's really important, and that's helps you to attract.
And you shared also not just networking upwards, but networking with people from all walks of life in different things as well.
I think for some people, they get to a certain level and they feel like, oh, they're up there and people are down here. Hi, Amina. And so for me, I always say to people, like, when you network, a lot of people just want to network upwards. They want to be around the CEOs and the rich people and the people who are influencers and public figures who can open doors for them, which is great, because if you're trying to advance your career or your business, you can't be the smartest person in the room because you're in the wrong room. And so you have to be around people that are going to elevate you, to inspire you. You know, if you want to be a millionaire, you need to surround yourself with millionaires, not with, you know, people who are broke and have low ambition and low aspirations. But at the same time, while you're networking upwards, you need to network across. Your peers who may not be in the same industry as you are equally as valuable, and they also can be connectors and open doors for you. And also network downwards. And when I say down, I'm not saying people who are beneath you, but for example, my clients then are me networking down in terms of, you know, they're looking up to me. And so therefore, I'm still networking down with them. I'm still connecting with them. I'm still trying to find out about them and share with them. And they're sharing with me because they still also have expertise and things to offer that I don't know as well. I can't be an expert in all things and a drill of all trades. And so it's about having that opportunity to, you know, that, again, omnipresence, be, you know, networking different crowds and amongst different people, and take yourself out your comfort zone. Don't just hang around with the same set of people, because how are you going to grow? How are you going to stretch? How are you going to be open to different perspectives and different way of doing things, diverse thoughts, diverse opinions, different cultures? So, yeah.
Absolutely. Thank you. And with what's the trickiest part of being a mum with, because I know your partner works overseas, so what's the trickiest part running your businesses and being a mum? I know we talked about you having a lot of support from your family. Do your kids get involved with your business? Because I saw a few posts that you've shared where your children are inspired by your business, and they've got quite an entrepreneurial spirit as well. So can you share any sort of memorable examples where you've worked with your children, or where you've worked with your parents, that you could share?
Yeah, so we've got a property portfolio in the Caribbean. So I'm a part of that with my dad's business. In terms of property management, we've got apartments out there that we rent out to students, but also as well, like with my kids, so my son, before I had my daughter, he wanted to, the school offered parents and families to exhibit at the school fete, and it was £5 for a stall. And I remember him coming to me and was like, "Mum, I want all these things for my birthday." He was going to be turning 6, I think it was. And I was like, "Well, that's great, but you've got all these toys, like your room is over full with toys." He was the first child, and so he was spoiled and he got everything that he ever wanted, but he was a really good child. And I was like, "Well, what are you going to do with all these things?" And he turned to me and he said, "I'm just going to throw them in the bin." And I looked at him, like, give him a look like, "You're crazy."
Side-eye.
Yeah, side-eye, bombastic side-eye, as you would call it. And he thought, "Okay, Mum's not looking too pleased. Actually, Mum, I'll put them in a recycling." I was like, "No, a lot of these are plastic." I says, "How about you sort out what you don't want and you either donate them to charity, or I will pay for you to have a stand at your school fete." Because he was going to go to the fete, but you're going to have to sit on your stall while all your friends are playing and going on the bouncing castle and doing all those things. Are you willing to sit on your stand with all your toys and sell them? And everything that you sell, you get to keep all that money for yourself. I won't even take the store fee back off you. And then, sorry, 1 second, I can hear my children scream. Sorry, I just had to go on mute because you wouldn't.
Nope. I love that you involve
the older one's supposed to be looking after the other one. And so I said to him, "You can keep all the money." And so he kind of contemplated thinking, play or sell the things, but he was like, yeah, I'll have the money. So he went upstairs and literally he just spent that whole evening sorting out these toys into different piles. And he was like, well, how do I go about this? And I says, well, you need to think about the size of them and how good the condition is. We'll put different prices on there. And it was like £1, 50p and 20p. And there was the odd thing that was like £2 and £5. Some of the bigger things that we'd pay like 20, 30 quid for. And so he'd kind of done all the labels. And if you scroll all the way down on my Instagram feed, you'll see the picture of him sitting on his stand with all his toys laid out. And he made £60. And what he also did, so his two cousins came, and family came because my sister was there selling jerk chicken, and they were there. And he was like, can you do me a favour? He goes, I'll give you £5 if you watch my stall for an hour so I can go and play with my friends. And so he'd asked one specific cousin, yeah, and she was like 12. She goes, yeah, I'll do it for you. And then the other cousin was like, oh, I'll sit with you as well. And so he come back and he's like, how much money have you made? And he says, oh, you made another 30 quid. He's like, great, well, here's your £5. And the other cousin said, well, where's my £5? And he goes, I didn't come to no arrangement with you. It was so funny. I was like, this 6-year-old, like little entrepreneur. He goes, I said, me and her had an agreement, but you chose to work for her. So she wants to give you £2.50 out of her money. And I was listening there watching. He's 6 years of age. I was, what a little hustler. And so they had to take the £5 and share it between them. And then there's been times when he's always said to me, Mom, I want to come to some meetings with you. And then, you know, he got invited to actually present an award at like the kids, the Courageous Kids Awards in Leeds. And so he's been on stages. But like now, it's like what they feel like doing. So I don't kind of force my kids to come to stuff. So a lot of people would invite me to do things on a weekend. And they'll be like, oh, bring your kids. But they want me to stay there for like 6 hours. And I'm like, no, that's not fair, because I'm not just dragging my kids along to something for 6 hours while I'm essentially working, and they're not going to be enjoying themselves. If I think it's an environment where they're going to enjoy and they're going to learn and it's going to be beneficial to them, they'll come. But they kind of come to less stuff now because I'm so busy. I'm not going to be there to give them the attention, you know, that they need.
And with your children, I know that you had quite a bit of a break. You had between your two children, and then you went back into business after quite a break. How did you get momentum to get back into business after having your daughter?
I think the benefit for me, and I would say my situation is quite unique, because I was building my personal brand before social media even existed. And so I already had a legacy behind me. My brand was very strong. So for me to come back, it wasn't really a big thing. It's kind of like someone having maternity leave from their job and then come back to work a year later. But I feel for me, I had to kind of reassess where I was and what would work and what wouldn't work. And things had to shift because she was 2. Well, she was 16 months old. And at that stage, actually, I still didn't. I said to everybody, I'm going to have 6 months break and I'll be back. And then I enjoyed motherhood even more. And I was breastfeeding. And I said, you know what, let's make it 12. Let's stretch it out. And then 12 became 18 months. We went to the Caribbean. I was just a stay-at-home mom, enjoying the best life. And when I say just, I mean that is a full-time job and a half. Hats off to moms that stay at home. Like, people, they're just so underrated. And then I decided to go to university, and I actually thought, you know what, I want to finish off my degree, which I kind of dropped out when I got my first business contract. I was studying my master's at the time. I dropped out. I wanted to go back to university, you know, and I love just being under the radar and just being another student, not nobody knowing who I was, etc. And it was just great. It was just wonderful. And then I made a decision in terms of what I wanted to do. And that, again, just started putting my content back out there again, letting people know that I'm here, showing up at certain key strategic events and things like that. And so one thing that I was always committed to was the Multicultural Community Champion Awards, the MBCC Awards, and that was founded by a friend of mine, Zoe Bennett, and it's headed up by my business bestie, True Powell, who is the CEO, who's kind of grown the awards over the last kind of few years to what it is today. But I was a red carpet host, and so every year I was committed to show up and fulfill that commitment for them every October. And, you know, it's like me popping up and people are like, oh my gosh, Justice, you're still here. I thought you moved abroad. Oh my gosh, you're still alive. Oh my gosh. And it was interesting because it's like, okay, people do miss me. I said, I'm coming back soon. And people used to call me and says, like, you need to come back. You need to come back. You're like, what your services and the value that you provide is missing. like people still need your support. And so it's important that when you're building a business or a brand, think about the value that you're providing to your customers or your clients. And, you know, like I said, there'll only be one you. And so therefore it's okay to take a break. There's ways that you can automate your business as well, and making sure that you've got an income coming in and things like that. There's ways you can automate your business. I had income coming in. So I could afford to take, you know, that break without, you know, it financially affecting me. So I say, you know, making sure that you can automate and have things that run on autopilot or build a team so that you don't actually have to be there in
So
your
you
business.
actually help women create digital products online, and you're an advocate to many women on the topic of scaling up your business, and you've mentioned quite a lot about putting a good team together that work with you. How did you go about putting together a team, and what advice would you give to somebody that's trying to put together a team to work with? And also, could you talk to me about your dream plan launch a little bit?
Sure. So for me, my philosophy around teams is slightly different to other people. I don't like to manage people. I would have somebody else in, you know, a different role in my company who then sorry, my son's just texted me, WhatsApp me saying, Mum, she's on the loose. Talking about Amaraya. She's on the loose. Wild Amaraya is on the loose. He's just WhatsApped me.
That's so fun.
I love my kids, I tell you. And so for me, I've always worked, I prefer to work with freelancers, self-starters, other entrepreneurs, mainly women. And so I have a VA, people that do marketing, website, etc. And so I always say, make sure you look at the things that you can outsource that you don't need to do yourself, and find someone to fulfill that gap. But make sure you do your research, you do diligence, and make sure you do a proper recruitment in terms of getting those people on board and into your business. And make sure you have systems and processes in place, because there's no point in onboarding someone into a mess. There's no strategy, there's no processes in your business. Systems and processes is one of the most fundamental kind of basics and foundations for your business to grow and to be able to scale. You have to have those things in place. So dream plan launch is a multiple of different things. One thing is a, you know, series of workshops helping women with productivity, with planning and things like that, and business startup. I have a series of courses. I help women to create their own courses as digital products so that they can scale and free up some of their time by packaging their skills, knowledge and expertise into digital products. And then also as well, I have a business planner, which used to be digital for the last 5 years, which is actually launching as a physical product. This autumn, you can get on the wait list during August for that. So there'll be more posted around that. And that's about really being productive and really kind of, the more you can get organized and plan ahead. When people say like, how do you do it? Planning and organization. Like planning and organization is key. It's fundamental.
And you've got the branding blueprint as well, which is your monthly membership.
Yeah, so the branding blueprint, which I'm actually going to be rebranding the branding blueprint over the summer, and it's going to be changing up slightly. And so if you haven't already joined, as of like Monday, you won't be able to join until like August, because I'm actually doing some changes to it, kind of up-vamping it, so to speak. But that was like a weekly personal branding newsletter. And I may be moving that more over to like audio, so you get to hear like on a private podcast each week, which is a lot more kind of manageable. And, you know, based on the feedback I've had from the people so far, they've been loving the newsletter every week. It's been coming with workbooks and actionable advice and things for them to do. But they also, you know, I'm trying to make it more accessible, inclusive, and that's why I'm going to also be recording the audio during July.
And thank you. And at what point did you make a decision that you wanted to run your own business? And did something happen that made you, was it having children, or was it?
I started my own business before I had kids, and so my first business was a non-profit. So I was used to running my own organisation. That was back in 2004. And then when I launched my first business, which was my first magazine, which was in 2008. And so for me, when I was in my 20s, after obviously getting a criminal record then and not going to university, not doing law and politics, having this successful law career, I realised earlier on that I was unemployable. And I thought it was the fact that I just didn't have what we not willpower, but no staying power. So like I would have a job, and I could tell you, but between the ages of 18 and 21, I probably had 21 jobs. You know, I'd go to work one day, and that would be like that one day would be like, I will never come back through these doors again. I think the longest that lasts is probably like a month. And I just thought, this is just not for me. It's not giving me what I need, but I don't know. Is it just me having ants in my pants, being a teenager and not wanting to commit to anything? But I realized that actually I was built for more than those 9 to 5 jobs. I knew that was a purpose. It was a calling on my life to do something. And so therefore, you know, entrepreneurship gave me the freedom to do things the way that I felt that they needed to be done, to solve the problems that nobody else was solving in society at that time in the way that it needed to be solved, because I had lived experience of those things. And as I growed and I transitioned and then I had children, it became even more apparent that I wanted to stay in entrepreneurship. I remember even going back to, I was offered a contract at Birmingham City Council during when my son was 4 years old. And that allowed us to move from the Jewellery Quarter back to Harborne. He got into a really good school. He went to Chadvale Primary, and you know, it was great. But then we was made redundant after 18 months. I was an enterprise support officer. I was doing what I do anyway, supporting people and starting their own business. We were managing a £9.6 million programme. We were giving out grants of up to £50,000. I was organising Dragon's Den workshops and giving out little grants and putting on expo summits for young people. It was brilliant. But then that department was made redundant. The council just thought, oh, you've done great things, but we don't need you anymore. And that was the last free business support that was offered in the city. And then I had to get moved over, and I either leave or move over, but I had nothing lined up at the time because obviously I'd had this job now for 18 months. So I kind of had a few clients, coaching clients, but not really enough to sustain. So they said, well, you can go over to, I think it was like working with looked after children or into school admissions. And at that time, my son had to start school. So I was like, you know what, let me just go inside school admissions and see how the process works, so I can make sure that I'm in the best position. And so I moved over to school admissions, and I was there. And then I remember I said, you know, I'm not working full time here, because I could see already those 21-year-old thoughts coming back like, oh, I'm not going to last. And so I went part time, but they said 1 day a week on a Monday, you have to be here at 9 o'clock and you can't leave till 5:15. And my son was in nursery. And I remember one day, my friend who I'd worked with, and she'd moved to another department, we were still friends. She'd gone up a pay grade. I decided to drop a pay grade just to go part-time and have this easy kind of job doing stuff in school admissions. I remember finishing work, and the traffic outside, because it was in Birmingham City Centre, was literally at a standstill. And I was like, oh my gosh, how am I going to get to the nursery, which was in Edgbaston? And so she was like, don't worry, I'm going to get you there. And then she's my good Irish friend Mandy, and she got in the car and she drove like a gangster, I tell ya, bobbing and weaving through the crowd. But nothing gave me heart palpitations like being late before the nursery closes, that anxiety. And so for me, I was like, you know, F this in the nicest of ways. I don't want to live my life like this. And I went out and I found a contract. And as you know what, within the next 2 weeks, I'm going to find a business contract that's going to sustain me. And I'm going to have my notice in. And it was coming up to the July. My son was graduating from preschool, and then he was going to go into reception in September. And I wanted to spend the summer with him, because he'd all through those previous summers, he'd been in nursery while I was working or running my business. And I said, this summer he's having enough before he starts school. And so I got a contract, which actually started in August, but literally it was me delivering consultancy for 2 to 3 days a week, and it was giving me a full-time salary. And so literally I was like, peace out, peace out school admissions. And I left, and then I returned back, and I said after that, and then now having 2 children, I would never go back to a job, even on days when I feel tempted, like, oh my gosh, I could just do it for 9 to 5. By the time I calculate the wages and what you get after tax, I can earn that in my business anyway. So it's kind of like, you have those things because you feel like that security of getting a paycheck each month and going to the office and clocking in and clocking out. And that's just the normal feelings that come with entrepreneurship. It's a roller coaster. It's going to go up and it's going to go down. And there's going to be times when you're going to feel like, even me, I'll just go and get a job. Just because it could be stressful. It might not even be about the finances, but just the stress of it all and the burden, obviously, the responsibilities on your shoulders. But yeah, that for me, like the childcare thing, was one thing that I just couldn't. It's a non-negotiable.
And so now your days are sort of, your work days are centered around your children. So you start when they go to school, and then, am I right? Then you work predominantly while they're at school.
Yeah. So unless it's kind of like I've got like a crazy mad deadline, so launching the magazine, like all those boundaries went out the window. But that's what happens when you work on like deadlines and projects. Like, don't feel like you always have to work in these linear boxes. There's going to be times when you're going to have to go hard and you're going to hustle, and you're not going to be able to go out on that weekend. Or unfortunately, the kids, you're not getting 7 days of fresh, nutritious home cooked meals. There's going to be 3-4 takeaways getting dropped in that week, and they love it. The kids love it. Do you know what I mean? It's going to be duvet days, and you're in your pajamas and you're just working, and you might have to wake up. There's been days when I've had to wake up at 6 o'clock because, you know, I've got to hit this deadline, and before the kids get up, I've got to quickly do something for 30 minutes or get up at 5 or 4:30 or whatever it may be. But typically I will wake up at 6:30, shower, have a moment to myself, listen to a podcast, and then I will get my son up at 7 because he leaves the house. He has to leave out at 7:30 because he has to get to school for 8 o'clock. And then my daughter wakes up at 7:30. She'll just like say goodbye to her brother, and then she'll wake up and start her day, and then she'll have an hour with me, just me and her. And at that time, as soon as because he has my bank card on his phone, and so as soon as I hear that cha-ching and he's clocked in on the bus to get on the bus and I can track him, I'll jump in the shower at that point. I mean, I can see him, the bus stop's literally outside my bedroom window, and I'll have my head out and says like, get off your phone. And then once that happens, I will then leave out, give my daughter her breakfast. We will leave out at 8:30, and literally it's like a 10-minute walk to the school, and we like to just stroll up the hill, go to school, drop her off. I will then pop over to the Starbucks, which is literally 2 minutes walk from my school, grab my caramel macchiato, head back home, and that's when that laptop will get opened, and I will typically work till about 2. Sometimes I might have a jam-packed day, but my cut-off time is literally like 5 to 3, which gives me time to quickly use the bathroom, put my shoes on, and get out the door for 3 o'clock to go and get my daughter from school. But usually if I finish at 2, I would then cook the dinner, and then at least the food's ready for when they come home, because I don't know about your kids, but as soon as my kids come out, it's like, Mom, what's for dinner? Is the first thing that they ask. Or, Mom, I'm hungry. Yeah. Oh, my belly. Yeah. Like they've been starving for days. Yeah. Like, what's for dinner is the first thing. Not even hello, good afternoon. Like, what's for dinner? Yeah. As soon as I phone my son and says, are you at the bus stop? I can see you there. And it's like, yeah, I'm here now. The bus is coming. What's for dinner? WhatsApp me. And I'm like, you'll see when you get home. Do you know what I mean? And so, yeah, so then, you know, they've got their food, and then it's just like kids' time then, really. From then until like the evening, and then my daughter goes to bed at 7:30, and so she's in bed at 7:30, and then it's like my time, and it depends on, again, my workload. It may be 1 or 2 days a week I'll get some stuff done, but I only reserve creative work for the evening because I find that I'm more creative in the evening, and I prefer to be more productive in the day, if that makes sense. So in the day I can hyper focus and be like, right, I'm gonna just bang out this piece of work, get it done, because I work better in the mornings, and by 2 o'clock that's my peak. I'm like, okay, that's me done for the day. And then the evening times is more creative thinking space. I'll come up with designs, come up with ideas, brainstorming, researching. So I may do that, or I'll just chill out for the evening, and then I'll go to bed.
So congratulations on the Black Business magazine.
Thank you.
I can't wait to get my copy when it comes through the post. And like, I just wanted to ask you, what led to creating this fantastic contribution to the Black business community? What happened behind the scenes? Because I know you've had a magazine before. I know you've had this, you've been wanting to do this for a long time. Can you share a bit about that?
Yeah, definitely. So the first magazine I was in my 20s. I had zero experience. The magazine part was never the hard part, like creating the magazine. The hard part was financing it and making it be sustainable. Sadly for us, we launched 2 months before the 2008 recession, and the publishing industry at the time was the worst hit. There were magazines that were on the shelves, which you no longer see now. They're all digital. And these were usually like shooting front cover campaigns with £1 million budgets. They all closed and shut their doors, got rid of staff. And here we were a little startup from Birmingham with literally a few £1,000s, bootstrapping what we were doing. You know, we really didn't have a chance really of survival. And it's kind of like, at that time, it was like, oh my gosh, this is a failure and whatever else. But like, people were like that experience of that year of doing what we were doing and working with young people taught me so much lessons. That was 15 years ago. And in those 15 years, I've learned so much about business. I've learned so much about myself. I've become an expert in so much different things that, you know, someone came to the stand and said, oh, this magazine, oh my gosh, I'm going to post this video actually at one point. And he goes, look at it, it's quality. He was talking to my creative director. And my creative director, Leona, I met her when I did my first magazine. Wow. Her twins were 3 years of age. Her twins are now 18. And, you know, she used to be my fashion editor. And he was saying, look at the feel of this magazine. This is just like so quality premium. And I was talking to Justice, I was overhearing when I was recording him. And I did get his permission to kind of share it. And he said, oh, Justice was saying that this was just 4 weeks work. Like, that they turned this around in 4 weeks. And then I realized that Justice had a magazine 15 years ago. And it was like, no, this isn't 4 weeks work. This is 15 years of work and experience and knowledge. But also as well, it's about timing and picking the right niche as well. And so for me, I always wanted to get back into a magazine. My first magazine was a youth magazine. I launched an online digital magazine in 2013, a few years later. And that was a magazine for women. It was more of a lifestyle blog. And that was great. But that didn't really ever take off as anything serious. It's more like a passion project. And then actually, a few years ago, I wanted to do a women in business magazine. But I know that there were a few already out. And so I was thinking, okay, maybe not now. This is not the time in the market. And then in lockdown, when, you know, all the sad tragedy happened with George Floyd, you know, I was like, what can I do? You know, what can I do more? But I always say to people, don't try and do stuff which is not within your wheelhouse. I was thinking, looking at my skills and capabilities, what can I do which I am already good at? And kind of like do more about business was one of the things. And then I joined a group called the Black Owned Economy. There's only a few thousand members, and I became one of the founding members to grow that group to over 150,000 members. We got some investment from Facebook. And I brought True, who I'd known for like 15 years anyway, and, you know, involved into that initiative. And what we did is we put like a startup summit on in Leeds. We had exhibitors. I put on a series of like what I called the Learning Lives. Every Tuesday, I would bring in an expert who was a Black entrepreneur, who was an expert, who was an accountant, marketing, and we'd go live in that Facebook community to over 100,000 people and give free advice, etc. And I kind of really organised that group. And then we kind of like that kind of came to an end in terms of that relationship. And I was like, there's got to be something else that I could do. There's got to be more. And then I was speaking to a friend during the pandemic, and I came up and said, you know, I want to launch a magazine and I want to do it, and it has to be for Black business. And she was pretty keen. And I kind of pitched it to her. We were going to do it. We registered the domain. But then she got busy. I got busy. It was a pandemic. I had a toddler at home and a child, homeschooling, full-time student at uni, running a business. I just thought, you know, let's park it and leave it. And then
did it keep niggling at you?
Yeah, it did. And then literally last year I said to True, you know, we need to do this magazine. Like, I feel like me and you are the perfect people to kind of pull this off. Like, what my weakness was is that I'm a person that I'm not like a hard sales person, right? And I'm not really into the whole, I'm an ambivert, more on the side of an introvert than an extrovert. And so I'm not really the one that's going out there, closing deals and whatever. And True is the king of those things. And so he's the guy that can go out there. He was a, serial networker. He's the one who's built the NBCC awards to get, so much money in terms of sponsors and partners and the brand building and things like that. So I was like, you know what? That's the area that you'd be excellent at. And also he's got great relationships with businesses and people that we could feature. But I know that my superpower is in the editorial. My superpower is in the creativity, the vision, in terms of taking it beyond just a magazine, but also making it be an organization that supports businesses. We've got so much things that are happening. There's a podcast coming, there's going to be events, there's going to be an accelerator program launching at the beginning of next year. There's a big enterprise summit that's going to be happening in February. So it's not just a magazine, it's like a holistic business support, but it's a platform for businesses. And I know that he was the perfect person to do it. And we worked together on the MBCC Awards. We both trust each other. We stay in our lanes.
Collaboration.
Yeah,
really.
you know, when you collaborate with people, don't try and partner with somebody who does exactly the same thing as you. There is synergy. We do cross over. Like, I can speak to brands and partners. It's not a problem. But that's just not something that I'm passionate about doing. And so I have him to lean and to deal with that and lead on that side of things. And he trusts me to lead, but we both share the decision making because we're both co-founders. And so, you know, if he's going to approach brands or corporates or whatever, we'll have that discussion first and decide what deal and packages we're putting together. And same way with the editorial, I'm not just going to go and say, right, this is who's going to be on the front cover and this is what the content is. You know, we literally had our planning meeting yesterday, and we already started planning the next edition. And so it's a discussion, it's a conversation. We come to agreement, but it's my responsibility to lead on that side of things. And so, yeah, and so for me, getting back into a magazine, it was like a no-brainer. And so when we did the photo shoot on Saturday, the 13th of May, which was the front cover, 4 weeks later, exactly 4 weeks later, on Monday, the 12th of June, when we handed the magazine out to people at the Lloyds Bank event, that was the first, that was 4 weeks.
Wow.
There was no words written on the paper. You know, there was 0 word count, and we just literally had just done the photo shoot, and we literally probably got the pictures like 2 weeks after that. And so that's how we kind of turned it around and produced that magazine in that time, but couldn't have done it again without the team. And that's the thing about team, bringing people in to be the experts. We had somebody come in, an agency, did all the filmography behind the scenes, did the photography and all the editing and stuff like that. We obviously had a great partnership with Lloyds Bank, and Lloyds Bank obviously allowed us to, you know, pull this campaign and make it come into a reality. Obviously the entrepreneurs and scheduling them to all give up their Saturdays and scheduling all that, and obviously interviewing them and stuff like that. And then obviously my brother Levi, he's also got his own film company, Savannah Pictures, and so he was doing some behind the scenes stuff for us. We still got that content, we haven't even put that out yet. And then my sister Alicia, she's always been like a proofreader. Like, she's the type of person that you go on your WhatsApp story and you spelt something wrong, and she'll screenshot it and circle it and send it to you and goes, did you mean there or did you mean there? And she's a person like, you need to delete it and change it. And I'm like, I don't really care. But so she proofread a lot of the stuff for me. And then I had Leona, who was the
You've got such
creative
a great
director. Yeah.
Around you, and the partnership seems to really work between you and Dr. True Powell. So I'm really excited to see where the magazine and the whole platform evolves and gets to. So thank you for sharing. Thank you for sharing that. Do you have, like, what are your 3 top tips for growing a business? You've shared loads of gems, but
I won't, because I'll say 3 top tips, probably got 5 or 10, but I'll say here are 3 of the top tips. So I'd say the first thing is, like, if you're trying to build a business based on your personal brand, you've got to be thinking about what are your strengths, what is your expertise, what are your passions, what are your interests. You need to take a stock of that first. What are you going to be the go-to expert for? Second thing is, you need to really understand who your audience is, and make sure, unless you're running a charity, pick a profitable niche. A lot of people want to do all this good stuff and help the world and save the dogs and save the whales and all these great things, but ultimately you're still going to need money, you're still going to need income, because you've still got bills to pay and so forth. So I always say pick a profitable niche. So, you know, when you're actually thinking about who your ideal audience is, depending on what those services are, make sure that they can pay you. I'll give you an example, and it's just an extreme example, but don't pick I don't know, luxury home building. So you're going to be building luxury homes, and your ideal audience is going to be students, because it's highly unlikely that they will have the disposable income to be, you know, to building those luxury homes. It'd be high net worth individuals who might have their 2nd or 3rd home and so forth. CEOs of, you know, blue chip companies and Fortune 500 and whatever. So you've got to pick a profitable niche for your products and services. So whatever it is that you offer, make sure obviously that you have picked a profitable niche and you really truly understand your audience. You need to understand what are their pains, what are their challenges and frustrations, Also, though, what are their aspirations and their desires, and how does your products and services solve them? So everybody says what's their pain, but not all products and services are designed to solve a pain in that regard. Some are to satisfy desire, or to fulfill somebody's, aspiration. Hotel Chocolat, for example, is a luxury chocolate brand, and there's others. It's not pain for me that I need to buy a box of chocolate in the luxury range, but I want to, it's a desire that I might want to treat somebody with that. So that's what the two things first. And the third thing would be research. People like come up with a business idea and want to just jump straight in, right, I'm launching this. You've done no research, you've done no competitor analysis, you've not looked at what's the differentiation between you and your competition, what are you doing different or better than them, what's your niche, and do you even understand if it's a profitable market that you're entering? Is the market increasing? Is it on decline? What are some of the macro environment, things outside of your control that may affect your business, like changing government, Brexit, a recession, whatever it may be, war, whatever it may be. And so these are things that people kind of often overlook. And even when you're in business, continue to research. Always keep ahead, keep a look on what's going on around you. Never just settle and think and be complacent. Like I could be complacent and think I'm the best at what I do, and I guarantee you, me being complacent and just coasting, somebody will come and innovate and offer something that's better than what I'm offering. And because I'm sitting here thinking that I'm the best and I'm being complacent, and the classic one before I kind of finish is blockbusters and Netflix.
Oh my god!
There you go.
So I just drove past the old video shop and spoke to the guy that used to run the local video shop, and it occurred to me, my kids won't remember they won't have even known what Blockbusters was.
Exactly.
So what were you going to say about it?
So I used to go to Blockbusters. There was one on Harborne High Street every Friday night. My dad used to go out there with us, and we used to be able to get a Chinese takeaway or fish and chips. We'd go to Blockbusters and pick out a VHS cassette and go home and watch the movies, and you had like 2 days to return them and whatever. And that was a thing. And I don't know if you've ever heard, but there was the founders of Netflix. They went to visit the founders and the CEO of Blockbusters, and they talked about when they were starting, they pitched Netflix to them and saying, well, look, Blockbusters is the perfect people because it's a digital age now, and then they can take what they're doing and create it into streaming. And he talked about how he got laughed out of the office by the owners of Blockbusters and saying, like, you're a joke, you'll never amount to nothing. And obviously they got turned down for investment multiple times. And now it's like Blockbuster Who, like on Harbour on High Street now. So they had a small one at the bottom, then they moved to like this big massive double space on Harbour High Street, and I think they've just filled the space. It's been sitting there for like 20 years empty, and so it's a constant reminder to me when I walk past it, like, oh my gosh, Blockbusters. And so when you get complacent and resting your laurels thinking, oh, we've cornered the market, because remember, they were a global brand, they were doing great, they were profits, they were brilliant, and then you rest on your laurels and you didn't innovate, you didn't stay on top of the trends, you weren't doing the research and looking at the market and where things are moving to. And guess what? Now it's Blockbuster Who.
Thank you. So as you know, I'm a childminder, and I have a mentor who's a childminder who's running a business in another part of London, and she does a competitor analysis every year, and she said either you can do it, she pays someone to do it for her. Yeah. And it's interesting, I was like, really, you do this? Like and it actually, like, we do things for our, like, when we work in sort of regular bog standard jobs, we do things unquestionably for our employers. Yeah. But when it comes to ourselves, we don't often always apply those same principles, and and I think that's wrong. We should really, everything we learn from what we learn at work in terms of a mainstream office job, we should also take that learning and sort of incorporate it into our own business practices. So like
mid-year review as well, like it's July now, so usually in June I do a mid-year review and look at what went well, what didn't, what were some of my targets in terms of growing my audience, finances and things like that. And it's a good point to kind of stop and say, actually some of the things that I planned to do at the beginning of the year haven't happened for good reasons. And now it's shifted my focus. Actually, I'm going to do less in the next quarter and 6 months, but it's actually going to be more purposeful and more intentional in terms of what I'm going to be doing. And that's the point of like having those little stock checks. So typically I don't work in August, so I'll still be selling products like my digital courses, and I've got a few that I'm going to be launching in July, but I'm not going to be out there face to face doing workshops. I've got a few things booked in already with clients like Barclays and whatever, which I'm not going to turn down, but they're all online. And so it's fine. It's usually even a couple of hours. But August is a time when I really sit down. And like my friend just said to me, I said, goes, just as long as I've known you, August, because it's your kids' time, you just go into your little world, you're plotting and planning, and then you come back. Like I always see September as like my next new year, so to speak. Like when the kids go back, I'm like a new lease of life, and I'm super focused to get ready for that last quarter of the year, October till December, because that's usually a busy period for me. And so I know that come the end of November, I have to have launched whatever was going to launch, because it's going into Christmas now and people are not interested. They're wind down, their heads are in Christmas and parties and drinks and family time. And so I know that September till November is a time where I know that marketing wise I need to go hard, and I'll be launching a few things. And so therefore like my group coaching program will launch for October, but we'll start like ramping that up in September. My planner, again, pre-orders late August, but then that'll be marketed out throughout up until Christmas. So yeah.
So I was going to ask you what's next for you, and you've just shared that. So thank you very much. And in terms of like, I know you do brunches as well. Did you want to?
Oh yeah. And so due to popular demand, the brunch club is coming back. It was like the business brunch club. I used to hire a private dining space, and at first it just started out with just bringing women together, chatting, networking. Some women who work at home, never been to a networking event, may not even have the confidence to say, right, I don't want to go to those typical networking. But guess what? The brunch club is your perfect, antidote to that, because it's just women, and you spent some time with me now. We've been on here for over an hour, so you can see I'm not scary. Like some people think I'm scary, or some people say, oh, some people find you intimidating, Justice. Like, okay, I'm not a person that usually might see out there smiling, and I'm not that overly bubbly. I'm a Scorpio. I'm always deep in my thoughts. I'm always observing, so I might have a bit of a poker face on. Don't take it personal.
Have a Scorpio.
But I love. But food is my thing, and so sitting down, connecting, collaborating, having conversations. So I put an offer out. So please feel free to DM, because there's no kind of like sales page. There's no sales page. There's no pitch. It's literally, if you want to meet up, whether you've got kids or you don't have kids, but before the summer holidays, for us that do have kids, and we won't be able to get out and just lunch and brunch with our friends, then on the 19th of July, which is a Wednesday, from 10 till 12, you can hop over to the suburbs of Birmingham and join me for brunch with another 11 other women. I'm literally capping the numbers at 12. 4 seats have already gone. There's 8 left. There's no hard sell. I'll kind of probably promote it every now and again on my pages.
I can't come. I have my yearly meeting with my consultant, so I'll be at the next one.
Definitely. And we'll be back in September as well. They usually are on a Friday. So it's either usually like the first, second, or third, fourth Friday. I'll think of which Friday it's going to be, but it's usually a Friday. But I'm conscious that some schools kind of finish a bit earlier, and so the Friday would have been the last day of term, and so people might be a bit busy.
Thursdays is good for me if you decide on a day.
No, I was actually thinking of Thursdays in my head as well, and I might actually do Thursdays, because that means I can still have my freeness Friday for myself. And so let's do that. So we'll do Thursdays for you, Sky. I'm going to move it to Thursdays. But
where can people find you online?
Well, go and click on my Instagram. So if you don't know me, you haven't come from Instagram, then click on my Instagram. You can see me in the top of this live, and just follow, drop me a little hello, and that'd be great. Also LinkedIn, so just search for my name, I'll pop up. There's only one with my name. Just put Justice Williams MBE and you'll see my face anyway with the blonde hair. And so LinkedIn and Instagram are the best places to connect. And then in a few weeks, my website, finally, after a decade, will be live. I keep saying this, but I've just not had a need to have a website, because I've just kind of been inundated. I don't want to kind of well myself with so much work, but I will have a website as well. But also as well, click the link in my bio, go listen to the last 3 episodes of the podcast. There's a really great one for women, which is all about the confidence gap. There's another one which is about choosing the right business model for your business. And there's another one, I can't remember for the life of me what actually it was about, but it's a great episode anyway. So yeah, so podcast, follow me over at the podcast. New episodes coming out next week. And yeah, just slide in the DMs, say hi, and just stay connected for great content.
Thank you so much, Justice. Thank you for sharing everything you have with us today. And I'll add Justice's information in the post. So please be sure to follow Justice and check out all the amazing stuff she offers for free, or her memberships and her podcast and everything else. So thank you so much, Justice. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you, Sky. Enjoy the rest of your weekend.
You too.
See you later. Bye.